if we're all here together, then we've been experiencing some sort of overwhelm, or maybe you're preparing for it, or maybe you've had it sometime in your life. So let's just all just take a breath and realize, just at least for this moment, that this is the only thing that's going on. The only thing that's going on right now is for us to connect as a tribe, as a very small community of love and compassion, and that our hearts are connected in a way that just feels good. So there may be other things going on in the world, but what's happening right now for us is that we're sitting down, or we're in a room of ours that feels the most comfortable. And we're just being present with just doing one thing at a time. Just breathing, just connecting with our breath, feeling how that cool air comes in through our nostrils, how good it feels to exhale. Imagine the beauty that comes from exhaling and being aware of that exhale, that we can to drop our shoulders and relax and exhale. And so we remember how it feels when we're very anxious and overwhelmed, that we forget how to breathe. But one of the great things that we can do is just to be aware of that breath. And like everyone else, I forget that too, to forget just to feel into my breath and maybe see if I can find my heartbeat in all that. So when I think about the overwhelm that I've had in my life, it's usually, I think it's about what's like everything that it seems like we talk about, is it's not about what's happening right here, at least not in its entirety. That the triggers that we get, and this one pertaining to overwhelm, is not necessarily about what's happening right here. It's just something is happening. It could be the smallest, most innocuous thing, and it just hits us, and it's like the straw that broke the camel's back, and we get upset. And whereas another person in the same situation wouldn't get that upset, but it hits us in a certain way. And it just kind of points me back to, it's got to be something deeper. It's got to be something deeper than I broke a glass while I was doing the dishes, and now I'm freaking out, oh my gosh, it's not just because of that. So what I've if I really want to look at myself and see what it really is, one of the places that I can always go to is how I feel about the world. And it's always a reflection, my current state right now in the house, doing my chores or having my conversation with my wife, that if I get the feeling overwhelmed, if I were to have a conversation about the world, unless you're the kind of person that nothing ever affects you, that you have no sway one way or the other, you don't have any emotion about it, then unless you're someone like that, there is some, at least, compassion and empathy for the world. And some of the things that are happening right now, there's a lot happening right now. And just all that going on, it can feel very overwhelming, especially for someone that has feelings, that's someone that has maybe sensitivities to certain cultures and races and groups of people, and it can affect you. And I feel that's a very healthy thing, that I've come here to dive into the world, and I am going to be affected, and I want to see what I can bring into that. So allow it to come into me and feel whatever I need to feel. If there's the overwhelming grief and sadness and anger, or whatever the thing is, and then what light I can bring to that. But unless I really feel it, I'm not going to be able to empathize with that. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is the overwhelm beyond what the world is going on, what's happening in the world, how that tracks back to your childhood. That there's, let's say, Well, let's say they're in a small room and there's not very much air in there, and it brings you back to your childhood when, your evil stepmother put you in a closet or something. That little thing is going to trigger that feeling of overwhelm. But it could be something very simple too. It could be something that you were such a little kid that maybe you're 5 or 6 years old, and the smallest thing just made you feel like, are my parents going to come back and get me after camp or after this babysitting? Or, I'd feel you start getting separation anxiety or whatever the thing is. And now as an adult, that little thing, could trigger that feeling of overwhelm. You could walk into a room and smell something and it could trigger something. So there's things that are going on that are tracking back to a traumatic situation in your childhood, probably. So the one question that I was thinking about this, and the one question that could come up is, if you're feeling overwhelmed about something and no one else is, then it's probably tracking back to something that happened in your life, and probably your childhood. So I want to approach this with several different ways. So I want to approach this, practically, and to give some practical now tools for this. And I also want to kind of course, talk to it on like a metaphysical or spiritual way and on a deeper understanding way. So here we go. Long-term healing. One of the best ways that I realize that that we can overcome or go into calm as opposed to overwhelm is stop relying on our mind and its thoughts to run our life. And if ever I'm talking to someone in a session and they're talking to me about fear and anxiety and they don't know what to do, and it all tracks back to, it's because they're relying on their mind to kind of guide them and to tell them what's what. And when you rely on the mind, we all know what the mind is like. It's kind of crazy sometimes. So of course that kind of builds into that fear and anxiety. So one of the first things that we can do is stop giving the mind, the egoic mind specifically, so much energy and so much responsibility. So we can kind of, like I'm talking about this a lot, we can kind of pull apart from that and say, all right, so I know that my mind is telling me all these thoughts about, this happened before, so you don't want that to happen again. But if I could just breathe and then go into how I feel, that is, it's so maybe underappreciated sometimes, that feeling is really our state of pure awareness and really our internal guide that has much more knowledge and wisdom than the mind has. So the first thing that I do is so I'm feeling overwhelmed about this. What is the feeling that I'm having, and why maybe has this come up right now? And one of the things for me, so a little bit about personal about me, is that when I feel overwhelmed, I've tracked it back to, and this, so I've gone through the process of, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed, and now I'm like, my my needles are out. I'm really overwhelmed. And I'm like, okay, I'm a pretty capable, confident person. And still there's things that cause me to feel overwhelmed. And one of the biggest things is when anyone asks me to take on a task or do something for them, and then my mind goes into the possibility that, okay, they could do this, but they're asking me to do this. And if I don't know exactly how they want it done, I could really screw this up. And then, goes into that. So I get a little overwhelmed when I get hit with too many of those things. And it's no fault of the person that's doing it, Valerie. It's no fault of anyone that's doing it. It's just that something inside of me gets a little poke and says, when I was a little kid, someone asked me to do something. Okay, I just got a memory. So I remember I was something like, I think it was after my dad died. So I must have been, well, I thought I was younger. Anyway, around 10 years old, let's say. My mom gave me $5 to go get a loaf of bread. Loaf of bread was a lot cheaper than that back in that time. I was it was the 70s or something. And she said, go get me a loaf of bread. And she gave me $5. And there was a carnival in town. And the games looked, I saw the prizes and the guy was very convincing. And so of course, I came home without the bread and the whole $5 spent. And I don't remember my mom getting really mad at me. And I just had an epiphany right now. Maybe she gave me $5 to get some bread when she knew the carnival was in town. I think I'm going to see if I can ask her about that. But anyway, it was just a time where I go, oh man, someone gave me something to do and I screwed it up. So maybe it tracks back to that. But this feeling of overwhelm, it always, like, we should, and like in a perfect world, if you might say that, in a perfect world, we should be able to accept this and not accept that, and not overwhelm ourselves. But the world is so fast and there's so much coming at us all the time. So we really need to work on ways of being present. And well, it goes back to boundaries. It goes back to, this is what I can handle, and without any reaction, just saying, no, I think this is about what I can handle. And I'm getting better at that, of just saying, I appreciate, what you need, and this is what I can do, and this is what I can't do. And then if someone has a reaction to that, then that's on them for having a reaction to it. But it's not on me to not to be so upset if someone has a reaction for me saying no. Like, my boundaries are something that I need to healthily create around me. But the fear of someone having a reaction to those boundaries is not really my thing to be worried about. Mine is to be concerned about my own internal health. So start doing things that really excite you. And the things that I got into before, years ago, is that I would do things that weren't really exciting to me, but I was doing them out of this, obligation, and trying to get affection and love and appreciation that way. But that kind of thing, imagine that you're just a person that does all these things for all these people, and you're not really loving it, you're not getting joy out of it. Of course, it's going to be overwhelming to you, and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I'm just so busy. Well, how about we filter out all the stuff that you don't really want to do, that you're not really excited about. And I know the whole story about, yes, but I'm doing this for a person, and this person really needs me. Well, how much of that have you been doing? How much did you do in your childhood that you became the person that did for everybody and took care of everybody, and everybody got used to that? Well, he's going to take care of it. He'll call this person and set up this person and coordinate everything. And that's very actually disempowering for those people that have learned how to rely on you so much. And the people that I run into in the alternative cancer therapy place that I work at, that's part of their whole kind of theme, is that overwhelm and doing so much for other people and not really taking care of themselves. So it can lead to a really out of balance system, because when you're in that, it just causes more stress. And of course, more stress causes a weakened immune system. So look at what the feelings of overwhelm are pointing to. If you're feeling overwhelmed, is it causing fear? Is it causing anger? Is it causing deep sadness and depression? That like, one that I think about is that maybe when I was a kid, and there were cops at my house, and my uncle was there, and my mom was in the house, and everyone was there, and they were going to tell me that my father was killed. And you can imagine the overwhelm of all that. And there wasn't really the opportunity to pull that apart and just take me in and say, okay, this is what happened. And, you're allowed to cry, you're allowed to express do whatever you want, and just give that little boy space to do that. But when everybody's kind of on this and not allowing that can trigger this feeling of overwhelm. And then on top of that, the feeling of sadness. So it's all kind of connected. Let's see. Okay, here's a tough question. How does my current lifestyle of having to do things support feeling overwhelmed? And I know that I've talked to a lot of people that they're overwhelmed and stressed out about their job. And but they also do like multiple things. They're part of this group and that group, and they study all these things, and they take on all these responsibilities. And sometimes I've met those kind of people that their childhood was very chaotic, and they've gotten used to that chaos. And as weird as it sounds, they correlate chaos to love, or chaos to um, like safety. Like if there's a lot of stuff going on, their alert systems are on, and they're very, cautious about what's happening, and their mind has taken over. And being in that anxious place, it's actually kind of a comfortable place for them. So what they do is they subconsciously start to create that life, start to attract a job or even a relationship that invites in the chaos and the overwhelm. And then so the sort of the healing for that is to go back to where that all got created and understand that that wasn't really a healthy environment. And a healthy environment looks like this. And say, okay, imagine this. And then we start to kind of change the perspective on what healthy, loving, supportive, safe environment looks like. So, but we can do that. It's like I've seen that so much where we'll say I'm overwhelmed and I'm so stressed out and anxious, and yet what are we doing to support that? And I know I do that myself. Like I might get overwhelmed with too many sessions, and it's on me to say don't take that many sessions. It's on me to wake up early enough to take time for myself. It's on me to do yoga or qigong in the morning. And if I choose not to, I'm kind of missing out on something that helps me to stay present, focused, and balanced. So there's all different kind of things that I could do that maybe I'm not doing. And so I'm gonna need to just expect a little bit of anxiety or a little bit of overwhelm because of that. So then I got to ask myself, why do I create this? Because when I start to think of that I am getting overwhelmed because the world is hitting on me, that's not really the truth. I am creating these things by attracting these things in my life. And if you could even think about it this way, is that this comfort level with anxiety and worry and a little bit of overwhelm, that I'm sort of sitting in that frequency. And when I'm in that frequency, I'll attract more of that. So I'll attract dramatic or situations with friends or family or jobs that are in that vibration. So in order to kind of heal that on a metaphysical level is to raise my frequency of consciousness, so I'm not in that. So part of that is like physical, practical things to do. And the physical, practical things to do are some of these. One is that I know this, you hear this so many times, but it's the most powerful. It's breathing deep. It's just saying, I'm really finally right here, right now, just breathing. And that is the only thing that's going on. And I breathe in a way that feels the cool air coming through my nostrils. And that's actually doing some physiological things in my body too, activating nitric oxide in my body and activating my sexual centers and a host of other things. But when I do that, that's really doing much more than just, breathing. There's like physiological things going on. And then, so I'm just loving my body and I'm feeding it right with it, the only thing that it needs. And then I exhale, and in the exhale, when I exhale in a deep way that's at least twice as much as my inhale, I'm completely, like the metaphor is, and I let it all go. And when I do that, my shoulders come down, my systems relax, and I come out of fight or flight mode, and things are it just feels so much better. But we just forget to do that. So, the other thing is tapping on the heart. They found this one to be really powerful. And I use this in like the most critical situation or the most stressful situation, which, luckily doesn't happen too much. But when it does, I close my eyes and I take two fingers and I just, at the top of my clavicle, collarbone there, the top of my heart in there, I tap, 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 right about that speed, tap, 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 tap. And then I say in my head, I am. Tap, 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 tap. I am. Tap, 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 tap. And it's like it's combining, EFT, emotional freedom technique, and tapping with this presence and awareness and the truth of what I like. All this stuff may be going on. It's kind of like if you were in a nightmare dream, and then you had the epiphany that you were dreaming. It's kind of like that, like you're in the muck of everything, you're in the world, and then you get the realization, oh yeah, I am. Oh yeah, I'm pure consciousness. Oh yeah, I'm loving awareness. It's like that. So that's what it does for me. The other thing that you can do is give yourself permission to remove yourself. So if like Valor and I have been in a movie and it's been crazy overwhelmed with, shooting and, all these things happening. And, we love an action movie, but oh my God, that was too much. And it was overwhelming, like the blood and God, it was crazy. And, there's a feeling like, what did we pay for that? We paid at least $25 just to get into the place. And then we paid probably $20 for the popcorn, And so there's a feeling of maybe I should stay because I did pay a lot of money for this. And it's like it's an exercise in giving ourselves permission to remove ourselves from the situation. And if it involves people, and if it involves friends and family, there's different ways to say this in the most loving way possible. And again, if someone has a reaction to your most loving, tactful, balanced way of saying this, of you speaking your truth about this, then it's really on them. So if you could say in such a way that sounds something like, I hope you understand, but I really need to remove myself from this conversation, party, event, wedding, whatever it is, that if you're feeling so overwhelmed that you could say something like, I don't know why, but I'm getting a trigger of emotions here and it's feeling very overwhelming. And I don't want to, I'm feeling like I might upset what's going on here. And I hope you understand, but I need to take myself outside or something. And if you say it in that way, like a normal person would say, oh yeah, that's totally fine. And especially if it's like a gathering, like a wedding or something like that, I'm sure they would be okay with, yeah, if you're feeling kind of wonky, we want to keep the space really, happy and fun and all that stuff. So most people would probably agree with that. But if there are people that kind of give you a hard time with it and say, what do you mean you don't want to be here? What do you mean? We just spent $50 to be in the movie. How can you say that you now you got to leave? That's part of the work right there, is that for you to, even under those circumstances, to love yourself enough to take yourself out of that situation so that you protect and support your own self. And that goes a long way to like healing and integrating maybe patterns of you doing things for, out of obligation, things for other people. And if you think about it this way, if you think about everyone is here to love and support you, then even that person that is challenging your own needs, wow, I just got this hit that this is actually a reflection of what's going on right now in the world, that you have these needs and there's so much pressure for you to discard your needs or your own feeling about it. And what a great opportunity for you to say, I understand this may be very illogical, but this is how I feel. And it really, like, if you think about that person that just came at you with this disruption, that is a great opportunity that they're saying, I'm giving you an opportunity to set your boundaries in the most loving, balanced way possible. So instead of reacting to it and fighting against it, now we can just pull back and say, I hope you understand, but this is how I feel. Wow, imagine if that was spread out across the world right now, if we just said, no, thank you. I'm not going to, there's no need to fight, but I feel really strongly about this. And what a great opportunity to set my own healthy boundaries. Let's see. Well, it all goes back to boundaries. And that's quite a common way to support ourselves. What healthy habits do I have that support calm? And that goes back to like a morning routine. If you're the kind of person that stays in bed as long as possible. Alarm rings, you jump out of bed, you get your butt going, you drink a coffee or out the door, then that's like right away, that's going to support overwhelm and not really calm. If you're the kind of person that goes right into Facebook and there are emails and phone calls, and it's all about all this stress that's going on in the world, that's kind of that's a recipe for your whole day going like that. So what I try to do is listen to something first when I get out of bed. Listen to something that is just innocuous, or not going out into this stress related situation or world events and stuff like that. Maybe I'll watch like a funny video, or maybe I'll listen to Way of Mastery, or maybe I'll listen to Gabor Mate talk about how to be a better practitioner and what I do. So there's things that I can do that are not related to like world events and that kind of thing. Or like, there's so many videos that are related to crimes and stuff like that. So that stuff, I don't want to start my day with that stuff. What thoughts do I allow my attention to? And this is a big one, because there's lots of topics out there that are very important topics, and yet they just continue on. Every year, every 4 years, there's always something going on. There's always some what I understand, every 4 years there's some kind of pandemic or epidemic or virus going on. There's always some kind of world event. There's always some threat going on. So it seems like there's always something to kind of keep us in this fear mode, this overwhelm mode. So it's going to continue. There's always going to be a millennium fear, an asteroid fear, China fear, everything. And I just want to just kind of pull back from that and say, yeah, this may be very important, but what's more important is my sanity, is my peace and calm. It's not like I'm this digging my head in the sand and spiritually bypassing everything. No, I really am a sensitive person, and it does affect me, but I can't let it take me over. I can't let it be all of my conversation. That's why, when Valerie and I get into conversations about this, man, we get passionate. We have our own opinions about things, and I love it. And I love her perspective about things. And we both are like, okay, now let's go watch a comedy, or let's go do something different. That's enough. Because like all this stuff, you could just go down this long train, and it's just never ending. So realize that the most important thing is your sanity and your well-being and your peace. The most important thing is not the outside world. It's not about what's going on in Afghanistan or Washington, D.C. or any of that. What's happening, what's most important is you and your feelings and your response and reaction to the world. Oh, let's see. Yeah, the world wants us to give our attention to all these important things, and there's lots of that going on. But you, because you are a sovereign being, get to choose and decide what you put your attention to. And even if you choose not to have any compassion to it, or any love towards it, or any feeling towards it, that's also your prerogative. So you get to feel how you want to feel. So no one can make you to do or feel anything that you are not ready to. So it just kind of puts you back into your center, back into how you want to feel. And that is the most important thing. I think that's all I got. Thank you so much. Again, as always, if you have any questions related to this, send them to me, and I'd love to talk about them on the next video, or just if you want to do an email exchange. Also remember that Valerie and I have our 5D Christ Consciousness Relationship Workshop from 10:30 to 6, something like that, on the 28th of this month. Really excited about this, and we just keep on adding to it and specifying different things that we're going to be doing little skits. So we're going to be talking about the difference between 3D and 5D and normal and Christ consciousness, and just kind of really heighten our perspective and awareness about what relationship can be like and what the view is from there. And then, of course, the other thing that I have going on is the men's retreat, September 10th, 11th, and 12th here in Sedona. If you go to my website, danielposney.com, and you go down to, I think it's retreats and adventures or activities or something, you'll find my men's discovery retreat. Really excited about that. So check it out. And I will see you next week. I hope you have a most awesome, blessed, graceful, fun week. I love you. Thank you. Bless you.